Good morning, students. Today we are going to start a new lesson, the second lesson of your textbook Flamingo. The second lesson is Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. Let us see first about the author. Anis Jung was born in Rourkela and spent her childhood and adolescence in Hyderabad. She received her education in Hyderabad and in the United States of America. Her parents were both writers. Anis Jung began her career as a writer in India. She has been an editor and columnist for major newspapers in India and abroad, and has authored several books. The following is an excerpt from the book titled Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. Here she analyzes the grinding poverty and tradition in which condemn these children to a life of exploitation. She has tried here to highlight the plight of life of poor people and children who are exploited either by their uneducated and poor helpless parents and society who employed them as child laborers. So as we know that there is a strict law for child abuse or child laborer, even though the strict laws are there, but we do not see any change in our society. Very often we find the small children, they are employed in different hazardous work or risky work. The employers mostly they prefer to employ children because they are very much active and they obey their master whatever they say. So let us see what is there in this lesson. Here you can see the main line. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Why do you do this? I ask Sahib when I encounter every morning scrounging of gold in the garbage dumps of neighborhood. Sahib left his home long ago, set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. His home is not even a distant memory. Where and there were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. His mother tells him that's why they left looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. So, as we see that natural calamities, so here basically we see that Sahib, the rug picker, he comes out every day in the morning with a sack in his hand, with a bag in his hand, and they scrounge for gold in the garbage dump. And sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Means garbage is their source of income. People who throw the things from there they try to find out the source of life. So Sahib early in the morning he comes out so that none other could find out the valuable things from that garbage heap, and that is why the author finds him every day in the morning, and she has the curiosity to ask the boy something, and the boy replies that he finds a rupee in garbage, and even they get some valuable things. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. Go to school, I say glibly, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. Sometimes we try to advise people without thinking about the background or about the situation. The author realized her mistake while she asked him about going to school. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I'll go. And we see that Sahib is an intelligent boy and he is very much interested to go to school. Even though he is a small child, but he is very much interested to go to school. He realizes the importance of education. But where will they go get school in a slum area? If I start a school, will you come? I ask half joking. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? It takes a longer to build a school. I say embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. So this type of comments are, or this type of, what to say, this type of suggestions are given everywhere. There is no doubt of people who do not suggest something good, but they never do. So after months of knowing him, I asked him his name, Shahibi Alam. He announces. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the street with his friends and army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. So the author Anis Jung, she is very much keen to know about the life and living of those slum dwellers. Especially, she feels sorry for those children, but nothing to do. And she observes them every day, and they appear in the morning like just like the morning bird. And now that she can recognize every one of them. So again she asked one this, again she asked one question. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I asked one. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf, he answered simply. The boy maybe has a pair of chappals, but those chappals are not to be used every day. Therefore, his mother doesn't allow to wear it. Even if she did, he will throw them off. It's another who is wearing shoes that do not match. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third voice who has never owned a pair all his life. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities, on village roads. It is not a lack of money, but the tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of property. So, according to the author, she feels that there is a tradition of walking barefooted, and many a time it is the factor of perpetual state of poverty. Their parents they can't afford a pair of chappal for their children. I remember a story a man from UDP once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past our temple, an old temple, where his father was a priest. He would stop barely at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited this town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes, but many others, like the rag pickers in my neighborhood, remained shoeless. Here, the author gives an example. The author gives an example that he remembers one story because once she visited Udupi, and there he found one boy was praying in front of the goddess for granting him a pair of shoes. And after many years, again while she visited the temple, there she found one, that means the one new priest was there, and his own son. He came from school wearing good uniform, shoes and socks. And the author felt good seeing that the priest's son is in good school uniform. So here we can simply say that the author has a dream to see the children in a school uniform so that they can go to school irrespective of caste, creed, or economic status. That is why the author is pained to see the children wandering here and there or picking rug barefooted with their miserable conditions. My acquaintance with the barefoot rug pickers leads me to Shimapuri, a place on periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it. Metaphorically, those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. Shaib's family is among them. Shimapuri was then a wilderness. It still is, but it is no longer empty. In structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage drainage or running water, live 10,000 rug pickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without a permits, but with a ration card that get their names on voters list and enable them to buy grain for food. Grain. Food is more important for survival than an identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain. Say a group of women in tattered saris, when I asked them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tents and become transit home. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival, and survival has acquainted the proportion of fine art. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a lacking roof, but for a child it's even more. So here, hearing the stories of those rag pickers, the author was tempted to visit once to Shimapuri. To Shimapuri, a place on periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it. Shimapuri, a place on a periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it. What do you mean by this line? Means even though they live very near to Delhi or in Delhi, but Delhi is miles away from their homes. What is the significance of this line? The significance of this line is that even though they live in Delhi, the light of development couldn't reach over there. They lived in such an unhygienic condition without pure water, without sanitation, nothing. Simply they lived in a makeshift house, and the main aim of their life is to get food for them and for their children. They do not have any identity, but they have ration cards or voter IDs, because even though they are very poor, they live in makeshift house, they have the voter identity card. It is because the leaders they need the food. So 10,000 rag pickers live over there in Shimapuri, and they originally are from Dhaka of Bangladesh. And from Bangladesh they left their own beautiful green land. It is because of natural calamities, storms, poverty, overpopulation, and so many things. So, in that unhygienic condition, people live over there, the children grow up in them, becoming partner of survival. And garbage to them is gold. Garbage to them is gold. Means garbage heaps are like that of heap of gold. They can find so many things. Already I have told you, they find the source of life in garbage. Now, at sometimes I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says. His eyes lighting up. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging for there in hope of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For the elders, it is a means of survival. So, the meaning of garbage heap is somewhat different from different somehow it has a different meaning to their parents and their children. Children, they are very much, they wonder what would be there in that garbage heap. But their parents, they need only money for survival. So children, they are very much curious, because sometimes they find a 10 rupee note or sometimes a coin. So in that way, they are very much enthusiastic to find out something, and every day early in the morning, who can they come early in the morning so that they can reach up to the garbage first. One winter morning, I see Saheb standing by the fence gate of a neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game, he hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around, he admits. The gatekeeper lets me use the swing. Sahib, too, is wearing tennis shoes that look stranger over his discolored shirt and shorts. Over his someone gave them to me. He says in a manner of an explanation. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy. So there is a tennis court, and the author finds the boy Sahib just standing outside the fence. The boy is very much interested to play tennis. Means the author wants to focus upon that boy Sahib. Even though he was born in a very poor family, he lives in a slum area, but he has a dream. He has a dream. He wants to play tennis, he wants to be rich, he wants to be educated, and many more. And that is why he comes in a dress. He also wears shoes while he comes to see tennis, because he likes that game. And when nobody is there inside this court, The watchman allows him to go inside. So the fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole on one of them does not bother him. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. So somehow he has managed one pair of damaged shoes, but the dream of playing tennis, it is beyond his imagination. This morning Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. Canister means a steel carrier where he can carry that cup of tea, cups of tea. Now I work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. Does he like the job? I ask. His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. The bag was his, the canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Sahib is no longer his own master. So, another quality of the boy the author pointed out. The quality is that the boy doesn't like to be under anyone else. He wants to be the master of his own fate. While he was roaming here and there with the plastic bag on his shoulder, that seemed to be lighter than the small tea canister because the canister belongs to the tea shop owner and the boy has lost his freedom. He is not happy at all losing his own freedom. Then there is another story. So, this story about Mukesh, so better we should not start this part. In the next period, in the next class, we will continue with this. So, today go through this video and try to understand. If you have any doubt, you can directly ask me. Thank you. Have a nice day.